What is up, my nerds, and welcome back to another episode of The Nerdy Mind. Well, not new episode. It's actually a repackaged episode of back when I had Roll for Nerdy Check. If you have never heard that name, that was actually the original name of the podcast, Roll for Nerdy Check, and then I rebranded it to The Nerdy Mind. It's one of the earlier episodes. It's, I think, episode 4. I re-edited it, repackaged it, like I said, rewrapped it, and I'm sending it out because I'm actually on vacation right now. I am getting my feet in the sand, drinking some mojitos, margaritas at the beach, and enjoying some time. I am decompressing and trying to relax. So I decided to pre-record this and set it out and have it scheduled to come out on Tuesday for you all, because I didn't want you all not to have anything to listen to. So it's actually one of my favorite episodes of the podcast. So hope you enjoy, and as always, stay nerdy, my friends. I'll give you a scenario. Okay. So based solely off the movies, no books, which wizard was better? Okay, so which wizard would be better, Gandalf or Dumbledore? Okay, solely on the movies. I'm gonna let you go first.
I know my answer.
I think the majority of people who've tuned in so far are already gonna know what you're probably gonna pick.
Yeah. Like if you know anything about me or have watched any of these so far, it's Dumbledore. It's Dumbledore.
Okay.
Here's the thing. You're a huge Lord of the Rings fan. You've educated me quite well on Lord of the Rings and Lord of the Rings lore. But if we're going solely based on the movies, it's Dumbledore. It's Dumbledore. So your argument before I even hear it, before I even hear the internet. Are you
assuming? Hold on.
Before the internet comments and tells me that he beat that Gandalf beat a Balrog with single-handedly, knowing that it is like an epic demon, super high-ranked, S-ranked demon, beat him with his own hands and staff and sword. Mm-hmm. But do you see that fight in the movies?
Yes.
No, you see clips of that fight. You don't get to see him go one-on-one. You don't get a 15-minute long, like, epic fight between the two. They fall, they fight on the way down, you get little clips of that, and then you get little clips, I think, in when he returns from Two Tower. Is in Two Tower, or is it Return of the King that he returns in?
Two Towers.
Yeah, so in Two Tower, he comes back as Gandalf the White, and kind of, oh, that's right, blah, 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 and you get clips of him fighting as Gandalf the Grey against the Balrog.
Right.
That said, I didn't see much magic happening in that fight.
Now look, so you're picking Dumbledore.
I'm picking Dumbledore, and I have more evidence for Dumbledore, but I also wanted to prove that there was not enough evidence to support.
Go into your
Gandalf.
evidence. Go into your evidence, and then I'll go.
Okay. I think just based on Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, where he fights Voldemort, and they have this like one-on-one epic battle. Where, you see him creating a little water bubble, like taking water, surrounding his opponent, turning things into other things, avoiding killing curses left and right. He has this epic magic. We also see him do a variety of other magic throughout the movie franchise, apparating. I mean, he's pretty epic wizard.
Okay. You're right. Mm-hmm. You're going to be surprised, but I would pick Dumbledore as well.
Ooh.
Now,
okay.
Because the question said, who's a better wizard?
Yes.
In Lord of the Rings, they do not really hammer home. Yes, he is a wizard, but he doesn't really do many crazy wizarding things.
Yeah,
other than summoning eagles or doing shields, light shields from things, or, showing the ring race away, the Nazguls away from the darkness, bringing light when there is dark. But you are correct. In the wizarding, if it's wizards, spells and everything, Dumbledore would win, because the universe is solely based around wizarding. It's solely based around doing spells, doing all that stuff. Where if you were going to say hand-to-hand combat,
Oh, yeah.
Dumbledore would win, because throughout the whole movie, Dumbledore, yeah, he's doing some wizarding things, but he's more giving his wise words, encouraging the team to continue on, and just killing orcs with swords
You
and
mean
staff.
Gandalf. You said Dumbledore.
Okay, sorry, yeah. What did I say?
You were like, Dumbledore is great at hand-to-hand combat. And I was like,
oh yeah. No, I'm sorry. Gandalf is, slicing orcs and Orcai with swords and his staff. That being said, if it's straight magic only, going based off the movies, yeah, I would agree with you. Dumbledore would win.
I think that you're right. If it were a question of like who could hold their own in like a literal military conflict, out on the field battling orcs and stuff like that, I think that they would both hold their own pretty well. But many times during Lord of the Rings, I was watching him like ride around on a horse and swing a sword, and I'm like, aren't you a wizard? Why are you not like setting them ablaze with your magical whatever? Like, if you can take down a Balrog with your own two hands / staff and whatever, why are you like sitting here fighting like warrior number 3 on set for the day? And there's a lot of questions as to like, for me in Lord of the Rings, like I love Gandalf. I think he's a wonderful character, and I think his magic does root more heavily because of what we know about his actual lore. That his magic comes from a more like almost primal level.
Angelic.
So like he creates light. He creates he snuffs out the darkness, and he's got that. Tolkien has that like. Style for his like magical people where it's like they're more wise than powerful, where I think Dumbledore is extremely wise. I think he has the limitations of being the best of humanity without being, whereas Gandalf is the best of the supernatural. He's literally an angel in human form. And so his magic, his wisdom comes from this like primal ancient source. That's kind of his style, whereas Dumbledore is also very powerful, is also very like capable, very wise, but he's still human. He still has human flaws. In fact, he points them out more than anyone to say like, this is a problem that I have. Like when at one point, spoilers if you haven't done Harry Potter, at one point he's talking to Harry, and he says, can you not see the flaw in my plan over and over again? And he explains that he meets Harry when he's a baby, and then he sees him again when he's 11 and 12 and throughout the years, and he says like, I should have I don't want to give any major spoilers away. Again, you should have seen or read Harry Potter at this point, but if you haven't, I don't want to discourage you. But basically at one point he just says like, I cared for you too much. That was my fault. My fault was that I should have just done what the cold hard truth of what needed to be done, and I couldn't, because I cared for you as a person. And so he points out his flaws quite often of like, I'm a human, I make human mistakes all the time. I'm just very, very powerful, very well known. In fact, I think he even says the problem with being me is that like my mistakes are they're amplified because of who I am, because I'm so world renowned, because I'm the headmaster of the school and one of the most powerful wizards in the world and on the Wizarding Command and all of these things. And so I find it very interesting that I think that magically based on the movies, yes, we see Dumbledore doing much better magic. And I do think that I haven't read Lord of the Rings, so I can't, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but even book-wise, I think that his magic is displayed better than Gandalf's magic is displayed. I think Gandalf's power is shown better and more obviously throughout the books, based on what you've told me. But I think that magic, one-on-one wizard v wizard, only using magic, no swords, no nothing, no hand-to-hand combat, although that would be very funny to watch, is just like two old men with no magic being like... But I think Dumbledore is a better wizard.
And it's an interesting take, because I wish they would go more in depth on what Gandalf could do as a wizard. You know what I'm saying? Because then I would maybe lean more the other way. But like you were saying, if we're going strictly just based on what we've seen in the movies on spells and skills, I'm obviously going to lean towards Dumbledore, because it's like apples and oranges. Yeah, they are both are wizards, but in my brain, it's apples and oranges. They're two different things because one universe focuses solely on the spells and everything, whereas another universe focuses solely on just we got to do something. We got to go destroy this thing, and they're more set in a different time, and they just do they're different style wizard.
Yeah,
but
I think Tolkien does a thing with his wizards that they're rare, and they're because of their rarity, whatever they bring to the table is something that is new and exciting for the characters in the story. Whereas in Harry Potter, when everyone is a wizard, you have to stand out amongst the other wizards. And so when you have literally a whole community, a whole subset of the population that has powerful magic, and then you get into the tier base of like you've got students who kind of know what's happening, you've got full grown wizards who are average, you've got full grown wizards who are above average, who are considered like good duelists, and then you've got Dumbledore who's like sitting up there with Dumbledore, Voldemort, Grindelwald, some of the most powerful magical people in history, and you've got Dumbledore who's like sitting up there, and then he's also got that like wizard mystique when other wizards don't even have that wizard's mystique of just like he's so powerful that we don't even know what he's fully capable of. But when everyone talks about him and what we see of him, especially in the books and in the movies, when he does step up and fight, it's like, oh man, demons run when a good man goes to war. He doesn't want to fight, but when he does, get out of the way. And I don't get that same power from Gandalf, even knowing that he is technically more power than everyone else, more powerful than anyone else in that universe, or most people in that universe, I should say.
It's kind of overlooked because, I mean, the wizards didn't really. There's only technically 5 of them, like 2 blues, Radagast the Brown, Saruman the White, who was the head of the order before he became evil. Then there's Gandalf, and they didn't come in until like the beginning of the third age of humans. So, which is a long time. And then everyone knows him essentially. They talk about, like, for him, everyone to know him, he must have done a lot of great things and is powerful, but they kind of skim over that because he's kind of like the nomad who travels around and does things for people. And with him being the Grey, he's not as strong as Saruman at the time, but then when he dies after fighting the Balrog and becomes the White Wizard, obviously his power is amplified, but they kind of nerf him. They don't really show what he can do other than him being battle ready for what is to come, fighting hand-to-hand combat. So I see what you're saying, and I would have to totally agree with you.
I didn't think it was going to go that way.
I know, and that's why I was like, when you were like, so like you're like setting it up, like thinking
here we go, let's go.
Yeah. You just gotta. I love Lord of the Rings. It's my number 1 series that I watch over and over again. I bleed for that series. It's just I have to be honest with myself with the question. With the question that was given. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Dumbledore itself, in a whole spell to spell combat situation. Yeah, Dumbledore would win.
Hell yeah. All right, well,
not how you thought it was going to go, did you?
And not how I thought it was going to go at all. But why don't we head into our next segment, which is Desert Island. Everyone's been asked a question: if you were stuck on a desert island and you could only bring XYZ thing, what would you do? So we're gonna probably tap on this segment throughout the course of this podcast. Not this specific podcast, but the future podcast. We'll try to revisit this one and do some different takes on it. But the one we've got today is if you could only bring one book series, if technically if you don't want to be stuck on a desert island, we're not going to put you there. But if you could only reread one book series or one book for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
Yeah. And this is just me being upfront. I don't read that many book series. I'm more of a movie buff more than books. But Dr. Seuss.
Yeah,
all
of course.
The Dr. Seuss series.
I mean, I should have led with no Dr. Seuss because I think that's everybody's first choice.
Yeah.
Being stuck on a desert island and being like 1 thing, 2 thing, 3 thing, 4 thing. or whatever.
Yeah, life lessons.
Redfish,
Sam,
bluefish.
I am. No, being serious. It's hard. It's hard because I read a lot of graphic novels more than like book series. You know, but I can't. Really...
Those are books. Books are books, man. So if you want to do like a comic book series or a comic book run, I mean, try not to say like every Batman comic book that's been created in all of time, but I mean, that's rules lawyering 101. Be like, technically, you said any book series, and Batman series can span across multiple franchises.
No. To be fair, I think I would. This might seem a cop out. I think I would choose Tolkien's stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So like Lord of the Rings specifically, or I'll allow you to include The Hobbit into that. And the
what about the Silmarillion?
Silmarillion,
yeah, like the prequel shit. So if I could read the Silmarillion, The Hobbit, and then into Lord of the Rings, I'm set. I'm set because... I mean,
to be fair, you have a lot of reading in that case. that's a lot of words.
I mean, it's kind of like what I do now. Like, if I get not really bored, but I kind of have a set time every year. So when fall comes around, a lot of people are watching Harry Potter, but I kind of like watch the extended cut of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So it's kind of like my tradition. So, if I'm stuck on a deserted island, I'm gonna fall. I think it's fall. I think it's fall. I guess it's time to break out Lord of the Rings again.
It's like, it seems chilly.
Yeah. What would you choose?
There's two. First one that comes to mind is Harry Potter, obviously.
Of course.
Because I'm such a Harry Potter fan, and I find myself, whether it was intended to or not, or whether she went back, and sometimes what authors will do is they'll go back, read through their first earlier books, 1, 2, and 3, and they'll be like, cool, what can I pull from this and incorporate it into a later book to make it seem like this was always the plan? It's a really good trick that authors do. Harry Potter, I find constantly new things, crazy things. Things like I'm gonna mess it up. Me and my wife just found out the other day that like Muggle was a word before Harry Potter that like means an actual thing.
Really?
Hang on, I'm gonna Google it while we're doing this.
Definitely use the almighty Google.
Muggle definition: a person who is not conversant with a particular skill or activity. So somebody who doesn't have a skill or isn't good at a particular thing, which in this case makes sense. There's somebody who can't do magic. I didn't know that. I've read Harry Potter literally dozens of times. I usually reread it once a year. Last year was the first year I
thought it was a made up word that she uses.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in her books that like Americans just don't like the whole boarding school thing. It is not unusual to like be sorted into a house in a boarding school and have, I don't know about the point system, but I think that it's very much like you're bringing shame upon your house. So if you fail your test, it's like, oh, house lion is not doing great. So those are things that people were like, she made up all that, and British people are like, that's boarding school, bro.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff that I go back and I reread and I catch like, oh, this happened and then she tied this to this, or this happened and these events came together because of that. A lot of cool stuff that just like I find over and over again. But I want to give a different answer because Harry Potter is, would it be the one I choose? Maybe. But I have a second favorite franchise that has rocketed up my list. It is well known amongst a certain community of readers. So I read a lot of what are called lit RPGs, which are basically books where you get either trapped in a video game, very Sword Art Online style, or you are transported to a different world where there just happen to be game mechanic things. And my personal favorite franchise, it's still actively going, is He Who Fights with Monsters by Shirtaloon. And the nutshell version is that it is a story about a character named Jason Asano who gets pulled from his world, which is Earth, into a different universe that has magic, and then he becomes like, instead of being like an elf or a human or a Leonid, he is an outworlder. So his outworlder abilities, so like if you're a human, you get these benefits. If you're an elf, you get these benefits. If you're a Leonid, you get these benefits. As an outworlder, one of his like powers is that because he's not from that world, the way that the magic in that world compensates for it is that they give him something that, like, they give him powers that help him figure out what's going on. So for him, it's a video game interface. So, like,
that's cool.
If he picks up a magic sword, and normally there's, like, an inherent understanding of what's happening with your powers, your abilities, magical items, things like that. You just, as a more magical creature, you understand. So for him, if he touches a magic sword, it'll give a description. It'll say, like, magic sword of the onyx swing. This sword allows you to, inflict necrotic damage every time you blah, blah, blah. It has a stacking effect, and X, Y, and Z. Or when he unlocks an ability, so the magic system in this book is, I love it. It's absolutely wonderful. You get 3 essences. Please forgive me if I mess this up a little bit, but internet. But you get 3 essences.
Don't forgive him.
That essences either magically accrue. So in this world, magic just kind of like it's in the air. It just kind of permeates everywhere. So this magic can condense and form monsters, or it can condense and form magical items. So essences are quite popular. You can also sometimes, I think you can the essences just kind of appear. I think technically you can like bank them, but so like you could have the strength essence, or you can have the dragon essence, or in his case he's got like the doom essence, the sin essence, things like that. And then you can get, they're not called like sub essences, they're called something else, but basically you can get something else that's like, oh, this is a dragon orb or whatever, and then you absorb it and your body will kind of sort it where it thinks it can best go based on like your body knows your soul literally creates it. So let's say I've got the dragon essence and I take in one of these sub essences, I forget what they're called. You would consume them, and it was like, okay, I've got you've got your main essences, dragon, power, whatever, and then you take these sub essences and it will sort it into one of those to give you a power. So if you've got the dragon essence and then I take a swift sub essence, it will be like, oh, that would go well with dragon, and so we're going to give you like a flying ability because it will combine the swiftness of speed with the like wings of your dragon ability. Once you consume 3 of the main essences, so again, let's say I did strength, the strength essence or the power essence or whatever it is, the dragon essence and the shadow essence, they would then combine to give you a 4th essence, and once you have all 4, you become a ranked person. So they have different ranks throughout the thing. So you start at iron. Well, technically there's like regular normal people, and then there's iron rank, bronze rank, silver rank, gold rank, and diamond rank. People who are iron are like people who are just getting started, just learning. If you're bronze ranked, you're usually, depending on one of the interesting things that they do is that in the world they have different like areas. So like different areas of the world might have lower magic than other areas. So like a bronze ranker in a low magic area is going to be more a bigger fish in that smaller pond. So if you're bronze ranked, if you're silver ranked, you're usually like a noble in those areas, or somebody who's very well respected, because it also comes with, your rank comes with prestige, essentially. So if you're a silver ranker in a low magic area, you're going to be more prestiged because, hey, you can help this community more because you're so high ranked. Because usually people go to higher magic areas in order to fight higher. More higher magic in the area means more monsters and higher level monsters, which people are then fighting to gain rank. So usually people leave lower magic areas for higher magic areas. It's all very intricate, very interesting. The magic style is fascinating, but the writing itself, the story that comes along with it, the main character is absolutely amazing. He's just a sarcastic asshole all the time, but he's also like a sarcastic asshole with a heart of gold. So like he just doesn't care. So like he's very like millennial about it. So he'll go somewhere and there'll be like a gold ranker who's like, you need to watch your mouth, boy. And he's like, why don't you shut your face? Like he just doesn't give a shit. Like people will come in and he just doesn't care.
Right.
Like he comes from Earth, so he's atheist, and then in this world they have literal gods who will just appear, and it's not uncommon. People will see them quite frequently, and so like he'll have like an interaction with a god, and they'll be like, "You must blah blah blah," and he's like, "I don't know if I even really believe in you," and they're like, "What? Like How do you not? I'm real." And he's like, "Yeah, but like the god thing, it's not my style." So like, it's really interesting.
So they're actual gods in the series, but he's like, "I don't believe in you." That's
like so he believes in them, but so at first he's like, "Meh," and then by the end he's like, "I don't give a," like they'll be like, "You can't do this," and he's like, "I don't give a fuck what you say." So like some of the gods are like knowledge, war, purity, things like that, and so
right.
and they have a whole god ranking system too. Like it doesn't get super into it, but like there's definitely lower tier gods like fertility. You can go to the god of fertility and pray for a child, and then they have bigger gods like knowledge, because all of knowledge is a big god. But they personify them. Knowledge will come down and be an actual, she'll put herself in human form, or she'll just like appear in your head. She'll just like talk to you in your mind. Stuff like that. It's crazy, and the story that they're able to tell is absolutely fantastic. And I consumed the audiobook. I would recommend to anybody, because the audiobook reader, Heath Miller, is fantastic. He gets the sarcasm and the like, I don't give a fuck behavior about it just spot on, to the point where like as a voiceover, I don't read it myself, the hard copies of the book myself, because I know that Heath Miller doing the audiobook will be better than what I could do in my head. Like he does such a good job with it. So I recommend it to everybody. And if I had to reread a series over and over and over and over and over and over and over again for the rest of my life, it would be He Who Fights with Monsters. I just finished book 8. The audiobook is out for book 8. Book 9 will be coming out in April, I believe. And I think the series he's constantly writing on, I forget what it's called. It's like Royal Road or something like that, where he publishes basically chapters and chapters, and then at some point they just chunk it into a book and then publish that book and then do the audiobook for it. But it's actually one like long story being told. And I think he's got it up to book like 10 or 11. My guess is it's going to go to book 12, because he's talked about doing like trilogy arcs. So it would make sense to do 1 through 3, 4 through 6, et cetera, all the way to 12.
Damn, that's a pretty long series. I'll have to try it out on Audible or something, because I'm definitely a audiobook type of guy. I listen to podcasts and stuff, so I love listening to things in the car a lot. So I'll have to try it out, listening to it.
Yeah, and
Audible.
For those who are interested in getting involved, including you, he puts out the rate at which he puts new books out is ridiculous. So like, he drops a new audiobook. So to publish, send to the audiobook reader, have the audiobook reader read everything, have either I'm guessing somebody edits it for him, because it's a bigger series, but I could be wrong. Heath Miller could edit himself. To do all of those things, he still publishes a new audiobook every 3 to 4 months. Like last year, I read or listened to I think 3 or 4 of the books, and they were all new. Like I haven't gone back and restarted them at any point, though I very much want to, just because I know if I go back and restart it, I'm going to want to go 1 through 9 at this point. And the problem is I would want to do that, but there's a new book coming out every 3 months or 4 months, and I'm like, I would have to really book it to get through 8 books in 3 months. But it's a wonderful series. It's absolutely for all our nerdy fans out there. It is a wonderful nerdy series that is equal parts video game, epic story, epic franchise, and like sarcastic millennial humor. So I can't.
Yeah, I definitely
enough.
gotta check it out.
If he who fights with monsters wants to sponsor this podcast, they're more than welcome to. If they want to introduce us to Heath Miller and have him come on the show and talk about the series, that'd be wonderful. You know,
that'd be awesome.
I'm not saying we're begging, but please. This has all been just one big plug to get like He Who Fights with Monsters swag.
Magfest, freaking He Who Fights with Monsters. Yeah, no, that's pretty cool, man. You sold that pretty well. You make it sound really interesting. I'd have to check it out. When we done recording, I'll definitely have to check it out on Audible and let it link up. But now that I think about it, honestly, I would also probably choose like a manga. I love reading mangas, so I would choose a manga as well. And
that's a good loophole of like the whole like, well, technically it's one series thing. Like you could technically just have the entire like One Piece manga and just be like, I was gonna pick a whole Naruto library.
Shippuden. I was gonna read Naruto Shippuden. That would keep me busy forever, dude.
That would keep you super busy. So let's go on a side tangent here, something that we hadn't planned. How do you feel about manga versus anime? Like, which do you prefer?
I prefer anime.
Yeah.
Again, that goes. Okay, so that goes along with what I was saying. How I'm more of a movie person, than a book series person. Mm-hmm. Not that I don't love books, and they're very important. But I sometimes when I watch movies, I don't want to be involved with something. Yeah, you know, I just want to sit back, relax, and I want it to be immersed into it. I don't want to have to like have my brain have to read what's going on and then imagine it in my brain itself. Someone's already done the work for me, so that's kind of how I feel. I love mangas. I love them to death. The same with graphic novels with Batman and DC Comics. I love it, but there's nothing better than having the story already told for you in a digital form. So that way you can just be like, oh my God, look at that. Like,
there's also something just, so I agree with you. I would choose anime over manga, and I know that's pretty, I don't want to say taboo, but we'll get some distasteful looks for thinking that. I just could never get into manga. I've read manga. I have especially like I have the books for all the like Pokemon mangas, like the thick boys that are like, hey, here's all of not season 1, but and the Pokemon manga, for the record, not what you would expect. It's adult. Like they're definitely like they're killing and eating Pokemon, or being like, oh, if I get hit by an iron tail or something like that, I'll die. And you're like, oh, they kitted this up for TV real hard. But no, I am in the same boat as you, which is I appreciate manga for what it is, and I'm not like anti-manga, but I never really got into comic books either as a kid. I was very much on the cartoon, the like X-Men, Spider-Man. Later in life, big shout out to X-Men Evolution. That was a good one. It was a really good one. And that's how I always kind of did it. And it was in a way that, because it allowed me to turn off my brain, like you said, it would give it to me and I could just consume it and let the emotions flow. And I think that it allows for better action. Because there's this with manga and comic books, in my opinion, please don't hate me, is that it is this weird middle ground of books, traditional word, books that are just words, can describe an action scene in detail in a way that puts you in the mind, or puts you in the theater of the mind of what's happening. So if someone's describing an action scene to you and it's like he jumped over the blade just as it swiped underneath him, spinning his body, he pulled out his sword and was able to slash, but that can give you extreme detail. And then if you cut to anime or animation, they can then also do the same thing, where they can show you what's happening in extreme detail. They can slow down the fight. They can pause moments. They can get inside the head. We talked about this in a previous episode where, in anime, they'll break down little tiny moments, pull them out, and let them kind of stretch out so that you can appreciate what's happening. I had said with sports anime, it'll break down a moment that is really just a split second in a character's mind and give it a good 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds of like, here's what they're thinking, here's what they're planning, here's what they're analyzing. And then when you come to fight scenes, it's the same way. You can slow down. Technically all of Goku and Frieza's fights were slowed down because they were moving so fast that it was like, hey, we're slowing down the anime so that you can appreciate what's happening. But in real life, they're moving so fast that you can't even see it. And then manga is this weird middle ground where you can't do either. You can kind of do it, and that's not to say that there's not good action scenes, but you're getting snapshots of what's happening rather than the full detailed account. And a lot of people grew up on manga. I didn't grow up on manga, so I don't have any of that nostalgia pull for it. So I just prefer animation or an actual book, which is why I had mentioned this in a previous episode. I read the Sword Art Online progressive novels because they're written out in Word novels. Right. They do have like a manga version of it, but I read the actual books, and it allows me, I feel, to connect with the characters and connect with what's happening more because it allows you a deep dive into their brain, whereas I don't think manga has a ton of wiggle room for long drawn out monologues or internal monologues, and you get like this much space and you have to make it work to the best of your ability.
I have a funny thing.
Okay, go ahead.
So you know how in Dragon Ball Z, not Super, Z, where like Goku be charging up, right? Like, so his fight scene. The fight scenes are in real life. I think they're like timed. I think they're like, it's supposed to be like 10 minutes is how long the fight's going on, but the episodes are like, it's like 6 episodes in and they're still fighting.
It was like a running gag when they did when Frieza was like, I give this planet 5 minutes before it explodes and kills us both, and then Goku's like, 5 minutes is more than enough to beat you, and then it goes for like a good 30 episodes, and people are like, 5 minutes? 5 minutes. And at one point they drop a little like, I guess it's been more than like a minute or two more than 5 minutes. It's lasting longer than I thought. And I was like, okay, at best, we're at 7 minutes. And it has been like, like outside of the context of the show, we have been watching like 6.5 hours of like this like fighting arc.
So imagine like you're reading a manga, right, of that fight scene. So okay, 7 minutes, right, and all of a sudden like half the pages are just showing Goku charging up. He's like, you're like, flip it, flip it.
Well, and
he's still charging up. Flip it,
especially with these like
it.
shonen jumps where it's like, you're just flipping a page and you're like, Goku charges up. Flip to the next page. Frieza charges up. Fight. Charge. And you're like, wow, there's a lot of wasted paper.
There's a lot of wasted paper here. Yeah, a lot of great drawings. But
the reason they do that in the anime is because they're stalling for time. So to keep up for it, like especially with the like shonen jumps like Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, Naruto, they're like, we have to stall for time. So this episode that could have been condensed into, take 10 episodes, condense them into maybe 2 or 3 episodes. They're like, hey, we don't want to get too far ahead and then have to pause. So, and that's where you get a lot of filler arc and a lot of like extended fight scenes. Now, as a kid, it didn't really matter other than to be like, this is taking forever. But like as an adult, I'm like, I ain't got time for that. So like, there's a thing online. I want to try to find it. I saw like a TikTok on it that was instead of One Piece, it's called like Run Piece or something like that, and basically someone went and like remastered and then cut down a lot of the fight scenes. So like the example they use is there's like a fight scene where they're doing that like locked arm thing where they're like, sorry Mike, where they're like pushing back and forth and they're like, and it like does it for like 5 minutes in the show, and then in Run Piece, which is the faster edited down version, it's like they do it for like a second, so it's like you get it and they don't have to go back and forth with being like they just do it, and then they move to the next like fight thing, and it cuts down from like 1,000 episodes down to like 600 episodes, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's like when I was trying to finish Naruto Shippuden. There was a website where they literally went through and they cut out all the filler episodes, so that way you could just watch all the story arc. So that way you didn't have to waste time going through it, and it would save me so much time.
That's what Dragon Ball Z Kai did. They like redid Dragon Ball Z with like updated HD drawings, and they got most of the original voice cast back, and they like re-recorded it. But they like cut down all the filler.
And they got rid of the blood, and they put like just.
And they got rid of they also like.
And it was like someone got their arm cut, like they got their tail or arm cut off, and you just see it just black there.
Yeah,
and
then I often wondered to myself. So for those who, I don't know if I've mentioned it on here. One of my best friends, who's also named Zach, he's a huge One Piece fan. I had never watched One Piece. You know, I watched Dragon Ball Z and Naruto, and that is a lifetime's worth of anime in each show individually. One Piece is currently around 1,000 episodes more, I believe. Wow. So I didn't do that. I didn't do One Piece. I didn't do Bleach. I didn't do Inuyasha. They're just, I don't know if Inuyasha is as long as the others, but I know that the other ones are like particularly long. And I just didn't, because I was like, Naruto ended somewhat recently, like within the last 5 to 10 years.
5 years. Yeah.
Years. So like, and at that point I'm now like in my 30s, and I'm like, do I have time for this? But Zach's favorite, the other Zach's favorite, is One Piece, and he's a huge fan, and I know enough people who love One Piece, and I was like, it's on Netflix now. I might as well. Like, I want to call myself like a true blue anime fan, and as a voice actor, it's got like every voice actor you ever heard in anime in one, like they've all been in One Piece at one point or another, and it's been.
What episode are you on?
Wonderful. I am, as of like before we started recording this podcast, like I was like, I gotta stop One Piece so I can go do the podcast, which I think exemplifies nerdy check pretty well.
You were doing a nerdy thing, so I'll allow it.
I was preparing for the podcast, Shane.
Yeah.
This was a work exercise.
Makes sense.
I am on episode 120. So for those who need context, for those who have watched One Piece, to know exactly where I am, Luffy is fighting Crocodile. That's all you need to know.
You have a long journey.
I have a long journey, yeah. But you know what? I think that being 12... the thing about it being 1,000 episodes is it's pretty easy to determine how far you are, because you just divide it by 10. I'm knowing that I am 12% of the way through the show. I'm like, that's not bad, considering I really started like putting pedal to the metal on this like a month or two ago. Tops.
I mean, that's what's cool about anime, is that you can digest it when you want, especially if you want to binge it. And a lot of the stuff's already been done and dubbed for you, or if you're watching the sub, you can just go through episode to episode really quickly, and you'll get through it pretty fast.
Yeah, and I am dub over sub, because I'm a voice actor. Why wouldn't I listen to the English version if I can? That's not to say I haven't watched anime in sub. I'm fine with sub, but I prefer dub. And I know a lot of people like to shit on dub, and shame on you. It's amazing.
Side note, too. I watch a lot of dub. I don't watch many sub, but I watch a lot of dub, too, because it brings jobs to people.
Yeah.
In the American community, for like you or a voice actor. I mean, without them, you would have to. Again, I tell you, like, I like to just absorb the thing. I don't really like reading too much, so that's kind of why
that's certainly part of it. If I'm like extra tired, like I'll do dub, especially if there's. I'll do sub, subtitles if I don't have an alternate. If there's not an English version, or if for some reason the English version is hidden somewhere. So there's a lot of like. They dub them, and then I just can't find them even on like Funimation or Crunchyroll, and I'm like, you guys are the ones who own it. Why wouldn't you put it up there? So I mean, I will do it, but you're right. If I'm just looking to like kick back after a long day of work, and just like, especially One Piece is so great because it's great escapism. Where it's like, who doesn't want to be a pirate going on big giant adventures that you hear from like old stories of pirates being like, I once fought a fish that was 3 times the size of this island, and you're like, okay, old man, and then it just shows that kind of fun stuff. So it's very good escapism, and again, I like dub, I like English voice acting. I am in English voice acting. I want to be more successful in the animation field. And so I listen to the people who do it. You know, I go out there and I watch them, and they're great at it. I don't know if people give a sorry, you've hit on one of my voice acting nerves.
Yeah.
So I don't know if people understand how hard it is to dub anything, either live action stuff or anime or animation stuff. It's so hard because you're translating the script into a different culture. So language to language is already difficult, but culture to culture is even harder because there are jokes that are like Japanese cultural jokes that we just don't get. And so they have to find a way to make it so that we can understand the joke without changing too much about the core of the joke.
Sure.
or whatever contextually. Then they have to emote. But if you are an actor or if you've ever acted, you have a tool belt of acting tools. So if you are sad, you're gonna stop and slow down a little bit because I'm upset. I can't believe I lost my mother. Anime doesn't give you that time. You still have to match the mouth flaps. So if the words are if in Japanese the mouth flaps are this long and you have this many words, you have to add words or slow down, but their mouth is still moving. So you can't be like, I'm so sad, I can't believe she's gone. You have to be like, I'm so sad, I can't believe she's gone. But you have to keep that speed, which immediately changes the tone of your sadness. So they still have to match the emotion while matching speed, and that's hard. That's really hard. And same in reverse. A lot of times we'll have 10 words for what needs to be said in 4 words because their mouth flap goes da da da, and you have to be like, I can't believe she's gone. She was my wife. She was my everything. And you have to say that in like, I can't believe she's gone. Like, and just that's all you get. And so they have this very particular set of parameters that they have to work within, and then people are like, the dub's just not that good, and I'm like, they're artists, man. They're acting 10 times harder than some live action people are. So it's same to the Japanese artists, but they get a little more leeway because it is originally done in Japanese. But yeah, I mean, a big shout out to all dub artists because you're amazing, you're talented, and you're wonderful.
Yeah, I would agree. So talking, we were hitting on book series, but something that, you and I love to do, we love to kind of reminisce. What would be some like top 5 video game franchises that you would like either replay or like what would be your top 5 video game franchises that you would like want to replay or something?
So every time I give a top 5 or a top whatever list on this podcast, I like to preface it by saying these are my personal picks. I'm not saying that these are better than anything else. I'm not saying that this franchise is a masterpiece that blah 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 beats every other. It just means that to me, I consider it my top 5 list.
But then that's everything we say on this podcast. That's just our opinions.
It's all, we're not saying
it's not saying one's better than the other. It's just what we think. But
so why don't we go back and forth? We'll
sure.
We'll go 5 5 4 4 3 3 2 2 1 1.
Okay. You mind if I start?
Please.
Okay. With me being a big Sony guy, I would say the Uncharted series for me.
You stole one right off the bat.
Sorry, man. Sorry. Uncharted series, Nathan Drake, love him. I think they came out with the movie of Uncharted with Mark Wahlberg,
which was, I stand by, pretty good,
decent. Yeah,
it wasn't a masterpiece. It wasn't wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I think, especially because they went with Tom Holland, who was a younger actor. They were definitely going Nathan Drake before the video game series. But I think it was great fantasy escapism, which is what the game is. I mean, there are definitely, if you want a game where you have to worry about your bullet count, go play Last of Us, which is a wonderful show / series. Go play. There are so many franchises where you have to worry about that. Uncharted is just like you're not counting bullets in Uncharted. You're just
no. And then you got like cutscenes where like a train's running off a mountain, and then you got like, oh, we gotta do this real quick.
Your car is falling from outer space, and all kinds of. So for the fact that the movie was just good old, it gave me like the Mummy vibes, where it's like, this isn't like a well thought through, perfect, but it is really, really good escapism. And that's all I wanted from it. And it checked that box.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I might be in the minority. You liked it too, but I liked it. I wouldn't say it like hit what the video games did for me, but it still was good. It was a good movie in my opinion. But Uncharted would be my top series because it tells every game goes into detail of a different story, even though they're all connected. It just makes it fun. You get immersed into that game so well because it's a great storytelling game. It's not just a game. It tells a story. Yeah, so
I agree. You? I think it is. I think it's just a guy's version of
Lara Croft.
Lara Croft, yeah. I think it gives that to guys who feel like they connect to a male character more than a female character. Sure. And I love the fact that Lara Croft came first.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I love Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider's a great game, but I think like how you're saying,
is a huge Tomb Raider fan. She's all in on it.
I just like the comedic relief of that game too. Like they have serious moments. But there was also like moments where you're like playing the game, shooting something, and he has like one-liners, or Sully has one-liners, and then you're like, "Did he really say that?" And you start laughing while you're playing the game.
You're like chuckling to yourself as you're like, "Oh man, we've got we're in a temple where they're shooting like machine guns, and there's like a giant man spirit demon thing, and he's like, really? I should have had coffee this morning. And you're like, really? This is what's coming to your mind right now?
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to do mine. Sorry. One of these days we'll do an actual like ranked video where we actually put things in order. But I'm going to go in no particular order based on what appears in my mind. I have to give Fallout my first of my 5 slots because the Fallout franchise, I got hooked on Fallout 3. Especially because you and I live near DC, in the Washington DC area, and that game takes place in DC. So, I'm walking around and I'm seeing places that actually exist. For those who don't know, if you've played Fallout 3, the like underground metro areas where you would go in and there would be like tunnels and stuff like that, they look very accurate because the studio who made it, Bethesda, is out of Bethesda, Maryland. So when they were like, hey, you have to design the Washington, D.C. area, the artist just went out, not that they don't make that commute every day probably, but they went out and looked around and appreciated what was around there, and they incorporated that into the game. So there's a lot of really accurate stuff in that. But I think the franchise as in and of itself, I'm a big Bethesda fanboy. I know that they have their faults. I know that they have their glitches and their problems and everything like that, but they do wonderful games, and I enjoy them a lot, and I won't apologize for it.
I've actually never played. I've never played.
You never played any Fallout?
No.
Oh man. Okay, so we got to get you. We'll get you on Fallout 3 first because of everything I just said. But there's the thing about it is that there's the main storyline that you can absolutely do, and it's a great storyline. Fun fact: your dad in the series, who is the person you're like trying to find, is played by Liam Neeson. Which, like, holy crap, that's really a big name to be in a video game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in the Fallout franchise. Where you're like, who's voicing them? Wow. Yeah, it's wonderful. So I personally, Fallout 3 is my favorite. A lot of people say Fallout New Vegas is their favorite. I think it's just as good as anything else. A lot of people tell me it's head and shoulders better. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. For me, part of the appeal of a post-apocalyptic game is seeing the destruction, seeing the crumbled buildings, seeing the radiated land, seeing that. Fallout New Vegas is a wonderful game with great storytelling, but it's mostly in the desert near Vegas. So for the most part, you're in the desert. And the desert in a post-apocalyptic wasteland is still just the desert with, like, bigger lizards and things that are attacking you. So, like, I didn't quite get that, like, feel to it. So, yeah, Fallout, I liked Fallout New Vegas a lot. Fallout 3 is my favorite. Fallout 4 was fine. It could have been better, in my opinion. I think one of the big draws that you'll like about Fallout when you play it is they have the main storyline, which is great, but then they have a ton of just side quests that you're just like, it's this huge open world map that you can just go anywhere, whenever. And like, you'll be like, oh, look, an abandoned grocery store. Let me go see if I can find some like food, which will give me healing in the game. And so you go in there and there will be like a little kid who's like, please help me. I haven't seen my mom in 3 days. Last I saw her, she was... And then it, puts a marker on the map, and then you go try and figure out what happened. And it's a post-apocalyptic game, so a lot of the times you get there, and you find, like, his mom's dead body, and you have to, like, go back to this kid and be like, your mom's dead.
Yeah.
Or, like, you get, like, 3 options. It'll be like, your mom, because you can choose what kind of person you want to be, like a good guy, a bad guy. Like, you
Dude,
get,
that's
like,
pretty cool, though. It gives you options.
So, yeah, you can go back and be like, hey, kid, your mom died a heroic death protecting people from blah, blah, blah. And the kid will be like, oh, man, I always knew that was a possibility. Like, she was heroic. Or you could be like, I talked to your mom. She said she abandoned you because she doesn't like you and she doesn't want to be near you anymore, even though you know for a fact she's dead. Like, stuff like that. It's all over the place. It's awesome. They give you a ton of dialogue options. Like I said, they have a karma meter, stuff like that, so that you can... Like, you can do a bad thing and you'll get infamy, or you'll do a good thing and you'll get fame for it. And it's just it's a wonderful series in my opinion. And you end up at some point you can get like one of like 6 companions, where it'll be like, like one of my favorite companions is they have what are called super mutants, which are basically humans who have been like super exposed to radiation, and instead of turning them into a ghoul or a zombie, it turns them into this like 10-foot jacked mutant who carries around like a fucking Gatling gun, stuff like that. And I'll be like, there's one in particular that you can like bring with you on your travels. Usually they try to kill you, and so he's like a monster, and so I'll just be like, kill. It's great. It's a really great series.
I have Xbox, so I think they're on Game Pass.
Microsoft bought Bethesda a year or two ago for like $7 billion or something like that, because Fallout, Bethesda makes Fallout, but they also make Elder Scrolls. So if you've played Skyrim, Fallout, if you haven't played it, Fallout is Skyrim with guns. It's the same thing, but instead of like dungeons, you get like abandoned buildings, and instead of like mystical swords, you get like guns and like melee weapons like bats and stuff like that. Right.
Well, that's a pretty good first pick.
Thank you.
I'll have to look in Game Pass and play. I'll start off with just 3, where you said.
Yeah, definitely
I'll start with 3, and then I'll go from there. My next series that I would probably choose, it'd probably be Final Fantasy.
It's a good choice.
Now, not all the games are linear. Like, they're not like, it's not like, hey, this game goes with this game, this goes with this game, but it is a series. And Final Fantasy for me is just one of those games that you can just get immersed into, and like Fallout, you have the main story, but then you have side quests. I love the grind. Some people might be different than me, but I love the grind of having to level up your team to like just be unstoppable. I don't know why. It's just fun to me. It's a sense of like pride and achievement when you do that. So Final Fantasy, like just going. I think another reason why I love Pokemon so much, because the hard part of grinding and making your Pokemon stronger to evolve them to progress further. But that's what I love about Final Fantasy. Just going out, like last game I played, Final Fantasy 15, driving his car, go out in the desert and just fighting monsters for fucking hours, so I could just level up to get to the next boss level. I love it.
Yeah, and we had talked about this in a previous episode. Knowing now that the newer Final Fantasy games, the grinding is combat-based, not turn-based combat.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to grind if you're just throwing waves of enemy at me. It's when I have to like stop. Your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. Cool. Now let me go fight someone else. Stop. Your turn, my turn. I just want to be able to be like, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Cool.
Yeah.
Grinded.
Yeah, like if you were to play Final Fantasy 15, play that one, which they kind of started going that route with it, you would enjoy it a lot more, especially because they're like a lot of the characters have their own skill class where they can like warp around and stuff like that, and it just makes it more interactive and fun, and you kind of have to think a little bit more about it, more strategy. And then the same thing goes with the new Final Fantasy VII Remake, where you get to see Cloud just swing that big ass sword around and like do a bunch of tricks with it. Did they make the
remake?
Fun.
Is the remake turn based or?
No, it's all third. It's like a God of War style, like hack 'em slash 'em.
Yeah, I'll
So
play 7 now knowing that, because I know 7 is a lot of people's favorites. I would say for nostalgia reasons, if it's a very good game mixed with it came at the right time in everybody's childhood. Because I have a friend, Kevin, who his favorite is Final Fantasy 9, I believe. And he
yeah, a
was
lot
like,
of people's is. Yeah.
yeah, he was like, I think the story is better than 7's is, but it's not as powerful graphically, and it didn't come at the right time and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll play 7 now. I want to go back and play 7 and play it knowing that I can play it the style that I enjoy and actually get the story
like
out of
if
it.
you've never played 7, say you've never played on the PS1, it's fine, because this game essentially just retells the story for you, but you're just it's more graphically appealing to the eyes because it looks more of a movie style. And you love God of War and that style of fighting, so you'll definitely get down with this style of fighting with 7. So
Gotcha.
So Final Fantasy is my second pick.
It's a good pick. I will mirror your second pick with my second pick and say Kingdom Hearts is one of my all-time favorites. I adore Kingdom Hearts. I know that the story is a mess. I know that it is overly convoluted and chaotic and messy for like no reason, to the point where like the person who like heads Kingdom Hearts as like a franchise has like come out and been like, oh, I forgot that we put that in the games, that's why it doesn't make any sense here. But that said, I love the Final Fantasy style characters. In the Kingdom Hearts characters are Final Fantasy-esque. I love being able to interact with the Final Fantasy characters, despite the fact that I didn't actually play Final Fantasy that much. I had a lot of friends who did, so it felt like I was kind of touching their childhood with my childhood.
Sure.
And I think the story is just for a kid's game. I think it's great. I think the characters are well played. That's another franchise, by the way, where like every character is voice acted by somebody, and you're like, wow, that's a name right there. Like that's in the original, like almost all the characters are played by like higher, more recognizable celebrities, not just like traditional voice actors. Which, don't get me wrong, I love traditional voice actors. I am a traditional voice actor, but like these are like celebrities who came in, and you're like, wow, really? For like a kids Disney-esque game, right? But like they had full faith in it from the beginning, and ever since then it was great. I mean, I have plenty of critiques about the series, but in the end, it will go down as like one of those franchises that just like has a spot in your heart always. Like whenever people mention Kingdom Hearts, even if it like drops off and the quality goes south, which like I have my gripes about Kingdom Hearts 3 and everything like that, but it will always hold a special place in my heart. So Kingdom Hearts gets the win.
It's a good pick, because I with me being a big Final Fantasy fan, and I love Square Enix, how they develop games is great. I actually played Kingdom Hearts because they had Final Fantasy characters in it.
Yeah.
Like going back to 1, I was a huge Final Fantasy X fan. So when you're on the island and you get to see Tidus, and then you get to see Waka, and then I thought it was like, I don't know, it was like those little Easter eggs that made it fun, let alone having the Disney characters in it, which was great.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Disney fan, so that for me it was a huge selling point, because it was just enough nerd, because I knew about Final Fantasy, but I didn't play Final Fantasy. But I'm a huge Disney fan, and so to be able to combine both of those, it was great, and to this day is great. Like playing through, again, I have gripes with Kingdom Hearts 3, but being able to like fight alongside like Sully in Monsters Inc. or even Elsa in Frozen, or Tangled or whatever. I mean, they continue to build these worlds up, and it's never not fun to play.
Yeah, that's a good pick. It's a good pick. My third choice, I would pick more of a fighter base. I would say Dragon Ball Z, like Budokai.
Okay.
Budokai. Because I remember, so this is a little side story. I remember when I used to ask for the new Dragon Ball Z game coming out for Christmas all the time. And I was the the commercials they would send out for these games was so epic, dude. So epic that I would sneak under the tree. Well, like my girl would always wrap things early and have them under the tree. I used to like sneak at night, take the game, and like kind of like peel. I got so good at this. So like I used to peel the wrapping paper so it wouldn't like rip or anything, right? Mm-hmm. And like slip the game out of the sleeve.
Yeah.
And
while
like where it's
the integrity of the paper,
shape,
so that it
the
crumble,
shape.
so you can slide it back in.
Yeah. So I used to like take it out and like it was maintain the shape, take the game, put it in my PS2, then put the case back in, fold it, and then put it back on the tree. And I would just binge that game. I remember when
so
Bukai
you would take the game out of the case, play the game, and then would you put it back for Christmas, or would your grandma just not know that like the game wasn't in there, and you'd be like, "Wow, thank you."
Yeah, so she didn't know that it was like. So I would just like have the game in my console, and then like just have the case back in the wrapping paper, and then so when like Christmas came around, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, Budokai 1! I've been waiting for this!" And like every Budokai came out, Budokai 2,
you just
and then 3. I was
your
like,
acting skills as much.
Yeah,
as possible.
I was like,
"Whoa! I wonder what this game is gonna play like."
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, it's the rectangular shape. It's either a movie or game. I don't know what it's gonna be." And like open it, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like it's amazing. And I'd already have the game like beat way before Christmas happened. So it was kind of a caveat thing.
You'd be like, and done.
Yeah, it was kind of like, okay. It was kind of I kind of like set myself up for failure though, because like when Christmas happened, I had to fake being excited, which I was excited, but then like I couldn't go down and like play the game because I've already beaten it like weeks in advance. So
if she's like, go ahead and load it up, and you've got like, it's like character has been 98% completed, and she's like,
yeah,
that's weird. Didn't you just load this game up? And you're like, yes, just now.
Yeah, and like so it was like I was my worst enemy. I couldn't wait to wait to play the game. So I just already play it automatically, and then when Christmas came around to actually play the game, all my cousins were like, "Yeah, dude, let's set it up, let's play it." I'm like, "All right."
And you're like, "Come on, noobs!" Like,
yeah. So the Budokai series would be my third choice.
Yeah, fair. I never really got much into fighting games. I tried the Dragon Ball Z games because that, at least, I didn't grow up on Tekken or Street Fighter or anything like that. So, while I appreciate them as an adult, I don't have that pull to them.
Sure.
I also didn't have a ton of, the way my home life worked is like I had a bunch of friends, and then my parents got divorced, and we moved to a different area, and I was the awkward kid for a while because of it. So I didn't really have anyone to play against other than the computer, and you can only go so far at that point. Also, like, your friends will teach you tips like, oh, you can juggle a character if you're doing this and that. So I never got into the fighting games, but I did try the Dragon Ball Z ones, and the Naruto ones were pretty fun. The only exception to that rule is Super Smash Bros., which I think kind of supersedes the genre. Sure. Okay, I feel like it's a cop-out to give Elder Scrolls as a franchise because I already gave Fallout, and it's basically the same game. It's just reskinned. Right. You know what? I'll give it to Pokemon. I think Pokemon is a franchise that is kind of...
Yeah.
It gets overlooked because it's such a basic, everyone plays Pokemon, but like as a franchise, it's the highest grossing franchise period of any entertainment franchise. Like, they make the most money of anyone.
Rightfully so, because me being we're us in our 30s, we still play Pokemon.
Yeah. Oh my god, I'm still playing Scarlet, and I have 100 of the Pokedex. I have beaten all the storylines. I've done all the things. I still go out and do the raids for funsies. I will help other people if they're trying to complete their Pokedex. I'll trade them or help them. But like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, like technically are bad games. Like in design, they needed so much more polish, and I don't want to sound like I'm knocking the developers, because I think that the actual development team were doing their absolute best. I think that they just need to pour more money into making the game. But that becomes a a weighing situation, capitalism. Are they going to spend more money to make a better game, knowing that they don't have to spend that money to make a better game, and it will still sell better than anything in history and make them a ton of money, and they'll make the majority of their money off of plushes, toys, things like that, rather than the selling of the actual game. That said, it's still a wonderful game. It's still it is. Think of it this way. They've just made it to like the GameCube era of Pokemon, where you get like an open world and you can walk around and you can do it. Maybe the Wii, but like probably the GameCube. It's amazing. It is everything that little 8-year-old Zack sitting in his house playing on his Game Boy is like. Wouldn't it be great if you could like climb mountains and fly, and Pokemon would just be walking towards you, and you could just send your Pokemon out, and then they'll fight each other, or you can get into like a big battle. The gym, like you can go anywhere, you can do anything. There are different Pokemon depending on the region you go to. You can climb mountains. There are different Pokemon at day and night. Like it is. Everything. It checks every box, other than the fact that based on the capabilities of the Switch and based on the money that they make for this franchise, it should be a way, 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 way more polished game. That said, the root, the heart and soul of this game, oh my god, it's amazing, guy. Like it's fantastic. Like I stand by it that Pokemon is doing this. It's going in the right direction. Other franchises kind of do this, which is great. It goes up faster. Pokemon's making its way along, so just appreciate the ride, you know?
Yeah, and no, I have to agree with you with Pokemon because, let alone getting through the story of Pokemon, what I loved playing Pokemon the most for was just like I said, grinding, and I was just like wanting to grind so hard so that way I could see my Pokemon's next evolution.
Yeah.
Besides the fact of going to gyms and beating the gyms and beating the game Elite Four, I just wanted to like, all right, I want to see what Charmander turns into or Squirtle. I just want to see what they turn into, and then like once you get that next evolution, like okay, I really want a Charizard. I really want Charizard bad.
Well, and that's one of the things that I think this game does so well, Scarlet and Violet. I think they bring in this element of exploration and curiosity. You know, the map is huge. I mean, it's huge, and just being able to walk around and be like, what's over here? I think the Pokedex has 400 Pokemon, and that doesn't include the like raids for like Charizard just did a raid, Cinderace just did a raid. Those aren't technically part of the Pokedex. So I think that especially if they can continue to expand upon this, where we go from 400 Pokemon to maybe the next generation has, because there's like 1,000, 1,100 Pokemon now. I think that if you have a game where there's maybe like 800, 900 different Pokemon, and they all, there's all evolutions for everything, there's all that kind of stuff. I think that I found myself wanting to complete the Pokedex. Not doing it because, I wanted a shiny charm, which you get for completing the Pokedex, but that wasn't my main motivating factor. My main motivating factor is like, I felt for the first time playing a Pokemon game like a Pokemon researcher who's going out there to find Pokemon, study them, observe them, you capture them, and then it goes into the system and everything like that. Like for me, when I played Pokemon, it was always about the competition of beating the Elite Four, being the best, getting my Pokemon up to level 100, which I've done all of in this game, and I enjoyed all of this game because those are still things that appeal to me. But for the first time, I'm like walking through a forest area being like, I wonder what Pokemon are here. Are there any in the trees? Are there any? Oh, there's a river over there. Let me go look in the river and see if there's any water Pokemon that I don't have over there. Like, that is the feeling that is the feeling you had when you cracked open Red and Blue for the first time, was being like, let me see all these weird, crazy monsters and see what they can do. 99% of the time, I'm going to stick to the same 6 Pokemon that I have in my team, but you never know. Like, you never know if you're walking around and all of a sudden there's a Tyranitar walking around, and you're like, I like Tyranitar. He's on my thing. Like, yeah,
it's like going through the Safari Zone. It was a legendary area for you to go and find like rare Pokemon. Yeah,
Pokemon that you were like, ooh, I've never seen this before. Ooh, a Kangaskhan. You can only get it here. That's cool, and that's everywhere in this game. Like, well, not everywhere. There's a bunch of commons, but there's like, you'll be like, oh, I have to get this guy, and he's only available at night by the coast, so you have to be on the coastline. Like that kind of stuff, that hunting, that discovery aspect of it, like, has been, I think, lacking for a long time in Pokemon, because it's been a lot of copy, paste, repeat. This broke the mold, and because it's all in 3D now, and you don't have to worry about, like, oh, I'm just going to loop in this area of tall grass until I find the Pokemon I'm looking for, but instead just be like, oh, I'm just going to walk through this whole foresty area and see the Pokemon that just, like, generate in that area, and then just walk around. That is the feeling, it is the imagination that I had when I was playing Pokemon, which is like, if this game was capable of more, this is what it would do. And Scarlet and Violet check a lot of those boxes. Maybe not every single one of them, but a majority of them.
No, it's a great pick, and I would have to agree with you. I think my next pick, though, may some people might agree, or they might kind of say that it's not as good as it used to be, but I was a big, and I'm still am a big Halo fan. I love Halo. I'm not saying it's the greatest shooter around, but storytelling and you getting to feel like you are Master Chief, and you feel the pain that he's going through throughout the story, or you feel like you gotta, like, defeat these characters, and you kind of run along, and how is it Bungie, right? Or is it Bungie?
It is Bungie, yeah.
Yeah, Bungie tells the story of Master Chief, and then now how iconic Halo is. They have comics, they have cartoons, they have a show for it. Yeah, a show for it. You get to feel the emotions of Halo. So I used to love, especially when it got to 3 and it got more. It wasn't just about Space Marines fighting aliens anymore. It was it kind of got ball, like a snowball rolling, and it had more depth to it. So Halo would have to be my number 4 pick for me.
Halo is a wonderful pick, and to be honest, if I had my choice, so I had, like, a shooter phase in my life where I, like, went through.
Sure.
That's probably out of context, not the best sentence to say. I played shooting games for a while in my, like, 20s. In that, like, 20 to 23, 24, where I just, like, all my friends were playing on Call of Duty and Battlefield and Halo and everything like this. And I think I might have even said this at some point, but Halo, if I had to pick one to play, it would be Halo. Because there was more sci-fi-ness to it. I don't necessarily want to relive realistic war shooting games, because realistically, war is awful. Sure. Whereas with this, you're like, I have a needler, so I'm going to shoot needle crystals into that guy, and it'll break his energy shield, and then it'll explode. Like, they had traditional guns and stuff like that, but they also had there was no more satisfying. Look at me, internet. There's no more satisfying feeling than knowing you're about to die as somebody better is coming at you, taking out a sticky grenade, throwing it at their face, and knowing, yes, they're going to kill you, but then they're going to die afterwards because you stickied them. And then there was an achievement for it. There was an achievement for killing someone with a sticky grenade while, like, after death. You died and then they died. It was the most satisfying feeling in the world.
Also, going with the narrator, the voice actor who, like, Slayer.
Yeah.
King Slayer. Double kill. Yeah, that dude, when you would play someone online and you were like double kill, you had that guy come on there and, like, Killer, Slayer, Kings, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing good, dude. I'm doing real good.
Dude, there was one moment, again, where I don't claim to be some wonderful gamer. I'm average at best.
Right.
Especially with shooters. And at one point I was playing Halo, and it was Halo 3, I believe. And it was like a map that was like a big circle, and then they had a bridge in the middle, so it almost made like one of those, like, do not do signs. And just by the luck of chance, I'm, like, running through, and I headshot somebody, done. I kill somebody else, double kill. I killed somebody else, triple kill. Killed somebody else, Kilimanjaro. And then I killed a 5th person, and I was like, what is happening? And I forget what the achievement is called. I just remember Kilimanjaro, and maybe that's what it was. I'm sure Halo fans will tell me. but I was like the proudest I've ever been that I got like, because in order to get a kill, double kill, triple kill, etc., 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 you have to do it within a certain amount of time. You only have like 2 to 3 seconds before it just counts as another regular kill. So to be able to kill like 5 people, especially when the team that you're fighting is made up of 6 people, if you've made your way through 5 out of 6 players within a 10, 15 second span, man, you feel like a boss.
Yeah, I would agree with you with that. Well, that's my fourth. What would be your fourth pick, though?
Fourth pick is we're getting into the weeds.
You really have to think about it. Yeah,
and I hate to sound so basic, but I think my second pick is going to have to go to Super Mario, because it spans such a huge part of my life, and it's
not a bad pick though. It's a great pick.
It feels like picking Mario in Mario Party. It's not a bad pick. Or Mario Kart.
I know what you're saying.
It's not bad.
I know what you're saying.
But it's like, whose favorite is the main character? You know what I mean? Like, everybody, like, for the record, I always go with Luigi when I pick, because I was always second player. When I was very, very young, I played Super Mario 1 and Super Mario Bros. 3 with my sister. Those were, like, the household favorites. She taught me how to play, but I was always Luigi as a result. And then, like, so I was like, oh, Luigi's kind of my guy. And then the meme came around of him on Mario Kart where he's, like, angry Luigi, and he's like, duh, 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 and he's like, and I'm like, I'm dying laughing. So of course I'm like, okay, I have to dust off my Ouija, because I had ventured out, I had explored with Shy Guy and Bowser, stuff like that. But when it comes,
I was gonna say, like, I would always pick like Koopa or Dry Bones.
Dry Bones was my guy for a while. I still like Dry Bones, but and I'll do Bowser in Smash. Bowser's one of my mains. But yeah, there's from Super Mario. I mean, I was very lucky at MagFest this year in the vintage arcade lounge. They had old school Donkey Kong back when Mario was like Jumpman, and he wasn't even Mario at the time. And I played it because I was like, I've never gotten my hands on a physical version of this. I've played digital replications and stuff like that, but I've never like sat down and played like like, and it was difficult because all those games at those time were very difficult. But yeah, I think there has not been a single, the only Mario game that I never like clung onto, and this is going to make people clutch their pearls, is Mario Galaxy. I started it, and I think it must have been because now I realize as an adult that I have some motion sickness that happens. And so that game, you're jumping from like, you're changing gravity orbs. So you're like, oh, I'm on a planet here and I need to be up there. So you like jump, and then the gravity of it just kind of like pulls you up here, and then you run around in circles. That threw me off. I would love to go back and replay it now, knowing that, and just kind of like, because I have my like methods of making sure that I don't get motion sick as much. But for the most part, even that game was great. It just I didn't continue it because of that. But there has not been a single Mario game that I feel like has missed the mark. I mean, yeah, you can go into the subsets of Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, Mario whatever. But main Mario franchises, they don't miss, man. Mario Odyssey is one of the best games, in my opinion, on Switch and in Nintendo history. It's just good, and it's got great replay value of going back and redoing these maps and everything like that. So I gotta go Mario. I gotta go Super Mario.
And it's not a bad pick. I don't feel bad that feel like it's a cop-out. I think I love Mario. I'm a big, huge Mario fan, so if you didn't say it, I probably would have said it. Because how you're saying we're kind of digging through the weeds, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, man, there's so many, like, different things, like different games that I want to pick, like, because we're diving into Nintendo. I'm like, I love Metroid, but I love Zelda. So it's like
there's a lot of franchises that deserve honorable mentions, and I'll probably finish recording this podcast with you, go upstairs and see like a Breath of the Wild on my console and be like, oh, I didn't say Zelda, like, you know what I mean?
So I'm sitting here pondering, like, man, what are some like iconic ones that I would love? I know you're not a big fighter guy, like a fighter game guy, but it was a big childhood thing for me, especially with my cousins. Like, we all just competed with each other. I was okay, but I was getting smoked all the time, especially by my older cousins, because they're just better. They were just better than me. But Street Fighter had a big part of my childhood, especially with me having a Super Nintendo and playing Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Ryu, my boy, me and him going through the ranks together. So I would have to pick Street Fighter. And they're coming out with a new game, Street Fighter 5. So I'm looking forward to that. Or no, 6. Yeah. It's 6 now. 6 now, yeah. So I think Street Fighter.
I know they're doing that because another voice actor who I know is voicing Blanca.
Okay, cool.
And I think that's really cool. I'm very proud of him. He's doing a wonderful job with his voiceover career, and I'm very happy for him.
Especially with Street Fighter, when it came to the PS3, Street Fighter 4, when they got to those, and they started getting more like the bubbly, but they got like when you do a super move or something, and they had like action scene type of thing, it made it really fun to like hit those. Yeah. I just love I love fighter games. They can be pretty fun if you want to have like a party style sit down with your friends type of thing.
You know what? When thinking back on fighting games, what fighting game actually kind of broke through my like I don't really play fighting games was the Injustice series. Because I knew the character so well, and seeing Superman, blasting heat vision, or Batman throwing the battery, like those were moves that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. They had an established spot in my mind, so it didn't feel like I was trying to learn everything. It felt like I was trying to figure out how to unlock this. Oh, I'm Green Lantern. I should be able to shoot things out of my ring. How do I do that? Yeah. Whereas with the Street Fighter Tekken franchise, I didn't know the characters as well. So I would pick a character and people would be like, why are you picking him? And I'd be like, because he looks cool? I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, Injustice is a good honorable mention. I love Injustice, especially 2, because 2 had a better mechanics, but yeah, I know what you mean. Rocking with Batman or Flash. I love playing with Flash. People used to hate when I play with Flash because he just spam
I do Green Arrow
moves.
A lot because I was really
did you? Yeah, Green Arrow was
great
really
sad because they did a custom skin for Stephen Amell's Green Arrow rather than like more cheesy Green Arrow, like the more comedy based Green Arrow. And they did his like, you have failed this city, like, and I was but you had to like pre-order and you had to do something else, and I didn't do those, and I was like really hoping that eventually they would just release it as like a thing you could buy, and I never saw it pop. It might have at some point, but I never saw it. Also, honorable mention to, it's not a franchise. I mean, it had one game and it was one and done. And I'm sad about this. Maybe we'll do like a games that deserve better segment at some point.
Kind of like the one-hit wonder type of games.
Yeah, like do you remember PlayStation All-Stars, which was like a Smash Bros. Style game?
Dude, I had that game and it was fun as shit.
It was amazing. It was Smash Bros. But with like PlayStation characters. You got like Kratos. You had I mean some really great games. And it was, it didn't get a sequel to my knowledge, and like it deserved way better, especially now that you've got like, you can put Nathan Drake in there, especially now that Microsoft owns Elder Scrolls and Fallout. You could put in like a super mutant, you could put in you could put in like Dovahkiin. Okay, so my pick.
Yep.
Okay, last pick, right?
Yep.
Make it count.
But I kind of feel like I'm kind of like it was so hard for me to pick this high. I'm kind of like digging in the barrel a little bit because I'm just like trying to think.
So I have one in mind, but I'm like, so here's the thing. I want to say Legend of Zelda because how do you do top franchises of all time and not include Legend of Zelda? Here's my thing, Internet. I only vaguely played the N64 editions. I didn't own them. My friend owned them, so I would only get to play at his house, and I only got to play when he wasn't playing at his house, which was like sometimes. So like Majora's Mask, I only played sparingly. And what was the other N64 one? Ocarina of Time. I only played sparingly. So I have since gone back and played them. I don't even know if I've completed them, but I've played them. But I really picked up the franchise at Twilight Princess. So I played
a lot of people did.
The Wii, and then then I did Breath of the Wild, and I adore Breath of the Wild. It's one of my favorite games of all times. But I don't know if I could. I love Zelda. I love the content that comes from Zelda. I appreciate Zelda. But I don't have the nostalgia pull on Zelda, which I think just barely edges it out of my top 5. What I am going to give it to is God of War as a franchise, because I have played every God of War. Now they kind of rebooted the franchise a little bit on the PlayStation with the new God of War, which is I think where a lot of people joined on. Welcome to the bandwagon. We love it here. Yeah. God of War is great. But God of War started on PS2 as just it had a great story, but limited for its time. But it was, you're Kratos, you're trying to take down the gods of Olympus, specifically starting with Ares. And it just hooked, and it was a hack and slash game, which it still kind of is, but there's a lot more depth to the fighting mechanics now than there used to be. Yeah. It used to just be
more skill based.
Yeah. And you just slash your way through people, and you'd get the blood or red orbs or whatever they were called.
Orbs, green orbs for like MP and shit.
Yeah, and then you would get specialty moves where you're like, my 2 blades can become 1 giant blade, but only for like a minute.
Right.
And it was just great. And then, so even pre the re-release of God of War and now God of War Ragnarok, I love that franchise. And I would have put it on honorable mention, but then they re-released it with the new God of War, which has a much better, much deeper plot, better acting, better mechanics, better fighting. Yeah. Fighting up against now the Norse gods is like just as sick as going against the gods of Olympus. And it's too good. I haven't touched Ragnarok yet. Here's the thing. I was gonna get Ragnarok, but then I was like, it's getting to be about Christmas time. Somebody might buy this for me, and we have a rule in my family, starting with me and my wife and moving outward to like my dad, my sister, that we don't buy gifts for ourselves within like a month of Christmas. So like starting Black Friday-ish, we just stop buying things for each other for ourselves, because there's a very good chance if I'm like, oh, I'm going to go buy myself God of War, that somebody was like, oh, he talks about God of War a lot. So I didn't buy it because I was thinking someone might get it for me for Christmas. They didn't, which is totally fine. And I just haven't had the time since then to like sit down. And I only have a PS4, not a PS5, which I hope will be enough. It is on both. I think it'll be okay. But I have to sit down and play that game because it's eating away at my soul.
Me too, because I haven't played Ragnarok either. And I want to finish it because I played, just like you, I played God of War since the PS2. And I even played the side games on the PSP.
Yeah, the PSP, the like Chains of Olympus.
I used to love those. Honorable mention to the PSP. PSP it was a great.
It was way ahead of its time. It was the Switch of its generation. They just didn't funnel enough energy into it, and because digital content wasn't strong enough at that time. But that thing you could get on the internet, you could browse the internet. I mean, it did everything a PS2 did. You could even play movies on it, but it had to be that specific PSP like disc within a floppy drive thing that they had going on.
And you know what's funny is that I still have my PSP, and I custom firmwared it.
Nice.
Don't lock me up, FBI. No. It's just it's a PSP 2000, so it's like the slimmer one. It's not the fatter one.
I had the fat
one. Oh, did you?
As you can tell, I like the chunky systems. So
the fat one is pretty decent.
I had the fat PSP. Well, I had the fat PS3.
The fat PS2 was way better than the Slims. The Slims had iconic reasons of burning out because they didn't have enough ventilation for it.
But I agree, the chunky boy was better.
Yeah, but I had where you could take the scan, like the SD card, put it into the computer, format it to where I could play Pokemon on it. I could put emulators where I could play Game Boy games, Game Boy Advance.
Naughty.
I found a way where I could download movies onto it, so I had a bunch of different movies that I could put on there, as long as I had a big enough SD card. But it was a great system, man.
Yeah,
I used to love
the
playing
issue was
that thing.
I think the main issue I had with it was I don't think they themselves poured enough into it Like, I don't think Sony gave it the dues that it deserved. Like, it got... I always said, if you like shooting games and if you like racing games, then the PSP was your bread and butter. But the problem is that it's almost like a lot of the problems that the Switch has now, which is like, the Switch does Switch games wonderfully. But if you try to play like a Bloodborne on Switch, it's gonna have problems. A lot of sports games have issues with the Switch because it just doesn't fit properly to the system. I think the PSP had similar issues where their workaround was that they would be like, hey, there's Need for Speed, and there's Need for Speed Mobile, or whatever they would call it.
Yeah, Need for Speed like Fusion or something.
Yeah, they would do like their own version of these games, but like slightly smaller. And then some games like Tony Hawk and stuff like that would get like a regular edition and a PlayStation portable edition that was the same. And it was okay. It didn't quite get that push. If they had pushed just a little harder to get the software, and again, they were restricted by the technology of their time at that point, that they couldn't get the big games onto it, and that's where they needed to. Because if they could have, I think for sure they would have blown ahead of the competition. Yeah,
and I think you're right, because I don't think it was pushed, but I don't think it was pushed hard enough, and it didn't have as big as a cult following as like a PS2, PS3, or Xbox. But I think what it stayed more deep in my heart is because I custom firmwared it to where I had like multiple consoles in one thing. You know, I had a Game Boy. It wasn't a Game Boy, but I had a Game Boy,
again,
and if I wanted
potential. I mean, it had a ton of potential. It just didn't tap into it. Also, like I said, they had these like, they were discs for the game, but the discs were in these like plastic, almost like floppy drive, like
these,
floppy
like,
disk
sleeves.
things. Yeah, like plastic sleeves. But if they broke at all, and they were very easy to break, from experience and as somebody who worked at GameStop for a long time, they would break a little bit, and then the plastic would like wobble open, and so the disc inside of it would be like, and then it would break the disc eventually. So because the disc was so thin and breakable, and then the plastic around it was like not great, if you were like me and you just had the system and played the games and what was available to you, then it wasn't. It was a 6 out of 10, and it could have easily been a 9 out of 10. And it sounds like you customed it up to like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, it was fun, man. I used to have a blast with that. And I used to make my cousin, because my cousin, he had one as well. Him and I would just play PSP together, because it was one of the Final Fantasy games I loved on it was called Dissidia, where it was a open fighting game essentially with all Final Fantasy characters. And him and I used to fight each other all the time. And then like when he found out that I custom firmwared it, he was like, dude, can you do it to mine? I'm like, maybe.
Depends, what am I getting out of this deal?
Yeah. So God of War is a great pick. It is a great pick. I kind of mad I didn't think about it, but it's okay. You mentioned it, so it's all good. So we're coming in about an hour and 41 minutes. So let's hop into this topic, and we'll hit it real quick, because I don't think it will take us that long to really say. So let me ask you this question. If you could go back and redo any movie franchise from scratch, which would you go with and why? So if you could redo anything, any movie franchise that you've seen.
Redo any franchise. So, okay.
I got a feeling what you're going to pick already.
It's gonna be Harry Potter. I'm so sorry. Okay. It's so there's rumors of them redoing the Harry Potter series now, like the franchise now. The thing about Harry Potter is that during the movies, especially around book 4 / movie 4, they start just doing this thing where it's like, it's Harry Potter. You've read the books already. We only have 2.5 to 3 hours to tell the story, and it's 5, 6, 7 hours worth of content that we have to just cut. So big storylines, big, this connects to this. They kind of just cut and aren't there, and then they have to. The problem is Hollywood. Once you do that to a franchise, once you cut something out that is mildly important or has subtext important in book 4 or movie 4, then moving forward from then on, you have to address the gap, or you have to. So like if this happens in the Divergent series, and the Divergent series was, in my opinion, the marking of the end of the like young adult push of like Twilight, Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Maze Runner, all of those. Divergent started, and what they do is they Hollywood executive it up, where they're like, cool, well, instead of him killing this guy, what if they just part ways, or what if he escapes? And it's like, well, that's not in the books, which, why would you make that change? The real problem, as somebody has talked about it with me, is that with movies, executives will do this thing where they just, because they don't care about the product at all, it's just another script that's come across. They're trying to tweak and adapt it. And it's like, well, the way it got here is because it's a beloved franchise in books. So you need people who have passion for the source material so that they can tell the story well. Because otherwise, what happens is, so going back to my example, instead of killing this guy, he's gonna let him escape because we hired Tom Cruise to be the bad guy, and we have to have Tom Cruise in all 3 movies. And it's like, well, that's not how this goes. So then from there on, you have to adapt the story to something new so that the Tom Cruise character can be in all the movies when he's supposed to be dead at book 1, and it unravels everything. Yeah. So I would go back. Now, Harry Potter stays mostly pretty true to itself. But there's a lot of extra content that fills things out and makes it more robust. So if I had to go back, I would redo Harry Potter. I would do it as a TV streaming service deal where every chapter is an episode-ish. As you get into the bigger books and there's 30, 50 chapters, you can consolidate some. There's certainly some that, like, I'm not saying that there's not fluff that can be cut. I just think that you can delve more into each character, because I think the thing that Harry Potter does the best is not its world building, but it's character building. Every character has a flaw. Every single character is a human being that has Dumbledore. He's amazing, talented, blah, 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 blah. But he keeps a lot of secrets. He keeps things close to himself, and he's not as trusting as he should be. Molly Weasley, wonderful mother, when you're pursuing something that is safe. So if you're pursuing a government job, if you're a prefect in school, good for you. But Fred and George wanted to be a joke shop owners, and they wanted to do jokes and stuff like that, and she fights them on it. Like, they were like doing a mail-in in the books. They do like a mail-in joke shop where it was like, hey, we can't afford a storefront, but if you want to buy one of our joke products, you can fill out this flyer. She like took all the flyers and took all of their like magical joke stuff and was like, no, you're gonna go to school, you're gonna get good grades, and you're gonna get a good job. Like, she was not very supportive of them, even though she is, for the most part, a beloved character. She does the same thing with Harry, where she like overparents him sometimes. Now that said, he's a 14, 15-year-old kid and needed some parenting pretty heavily, but like, that is where I think that a franchise on TV could delve more into each character's pros and cons and make the characters even more beloved. And I've said this a bunch before, but also like Hermione and Ron have this dynamic where a lot of people don't like Ron because they've only seen the movies. And in the movies, he's really just a comedic punchline character, whereas in the stories, Hermione is brilliant but bad under pressure, and Ron is kind of a goofier character who doesn't study as hard, but he's good under pressure and has a good working knowledge of the wizarding world, and he exemplifies Gryffindor behavior of, like, in the movies at one point, Harry is facing Sirius Black before he knows that he's not a bad guy. Spoilers. And
spoilers.
He
movie's been out for a long time.
Ron's leg has been like ripped apart. It's been broken in several places. It was Sirius like dragged him when he was in his dog form and like ripped his leg up. His leg is like hanging on by a shred. And then like Sirius Black comes out. In the movies, they give it to Hermione. She like stands in front of Harry and is like, if you want him, you've got to go through us. In the books, she's white as a ghost, standing stark still and being like, and Ron gets up on his one good leg like tries to put pressure on his bad leg, it just like squirts blood out and he like goes white and he like hobbles on one leg and is like, if you want Harry, you have to kill us and go through us to do it because I won't not die defending my friend. That stuff was taken away from his character and it sucks because like that, he is at his core the fundamental like best friend, brave, I don't care if I'm scared sometimes, but I'm going to overcome my fear and be a brave person. And they take all of that away from him.
The Samwise Gamgee.
He's Sam. He's Samwise. Yeah. That is exactly what... Imagine if they took all of Sam's good moments and gave it to, like, Gandalf.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And that's... long story short, I mean, real quick, Sam doesn't really... There's a lot of memes about Sam, about, like, him... How he doesn't use a sword as much, he uses a frying pan, blah, blah. Dude, I mean, Sam is brave. He's just a gardener being swept up from his life of being in the Shire to go help Frodo on his journey. And he carried the man up a goddamn volcano, so shove it.
I have another friend who's a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Like, I would say arguably more than you. Which is impressive because you're a huge Lord of the Rings fan. So he was the one who we first watched all the extended editions. He was like, "You're gonna come over. We're gonna watch all the extended editions." And I was like, "Cool." And he was like, "Because I was like, I have a ton of questions." And he was like, "Perfect. I love answering questions. So anytime you have a question, pause it, and I'll answer any question you have." So that's where I get a lot of my Lord of the Rings lore. After we watched all three of them, he looks at me and he goes, "Okay, here's your quiz. Who is the hero of Lord of the Rings? Like, who is the main hero?" And I looked at him and I was like, "Sam, it's Samwise." And he was like, "Correct. That is the only correct answer." Like, everyone know, like, you, of course you've got Frodo, you've got Eric, like everyone plays their part. And of course Frodo is played up as the main hero of the franchise, but without Sam, none of it happens. None of it.
Yeah. And people underestimate that. Like they forget without Sam being that person of don't do this, let's do this, you can keep going, let's just keep pushing forward. That ring would have fell into the hands of Sauron immediately because not saying that Frodo's weak, it's just how powerful that is.
It wears on you. I mean, that's the whole point, is that Frodo was not immune to the ring. He was just less affected by the ring. But I mean, again, at the end, he was ready to keep that ring. He was not thrown into the fires of Mount Doom. And again, the best line, and maybe I'll get this tattooed on me at some point, is, "I may not be able to carry the ring, but I can carry you." And he throws him on his back, knowing that he is also starved and dehydrated and exhausted. And he threw this man on his shoulders and carried him up the mountain, like up to Mount Doom. And like without Sam, like without anyone, none of it happens. Like everyone played their part. But in my opinion, the true hero of Lord of the Rings is Sam.
Yeah. And me being a Lord of the Rings fan, that's understated, but me being a Lord of the Rings fan, like you said, everyone plays their part, but Sam is the hero. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So what would you, if you could go back and reboot any franchise in any way? So if it's a movie franchise, because I know we had talked about if you could redo any movie franchise, but if you wanted to break it into a TV show, an anime even, you're welcome to.
So I was dabbling between that. I was thinking, do I want to like go actually strictly movie? Because if I was going to go strictly movie, let me break it down to two different things. If I was going strictly movie, I would want to rewatch the Christopher Nolan Batman series.
Okay.
Being what I watched the Batman, The Dark Knight, and then The Dark Knight Rises. Love how Christopher Nolan took the adaptation of Batman and brought it to more of a realistic type role.
Grounded.
More grounded. Me watching it for the first time, I was just in straight awe because I'm just like, wow, I could see if there was, a rich billionaire who had parent issues, loss of parent issues and had, wanted to fix his city up, I could see it. Like I could just picture it, That being said, you threw anime in there and we talked about it last time. I would want to rewatch Full Metal Brotherhood again. for the first time.
Okay, that's fair. What I meant was if you could redo the movie as an anime or a TV show.
Oh, as an anime. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
But we can certainly do that. We'll do that rewind, redo next time and do anime.
Okay.
So a couple follow-up questions for you real quick. I know our podcast is running long. Maybe we'll split it into two. Maybe we won't. Well, the future will tell. So do you think, first of all, do you feel like you are getting that rewind, redo feeling from the Batman? The Robert Pattinson Batman, because I think that they're doing an even more grounded version of Batman where they're because I think up until Nolan's Batman, they were still very campy movies. They got darker and they got the Tim Burton effect and everything like that. But I think Nolan's Batman really said, we're going to make this a real person who's not just like cheesy and comic booky, and we want to show the reality of let's make this real. And I think that it certainly pushed the superhero genre forward. And now I feel like the Batman is doing it again, where they're grounding it even more.
So what was your question again? Sorry.
Do you get that feeling? Do you get that like satisfied vibe from the Batman? Of like, I wish I could take Nolan's Batman, which is already amazing, and push it to the next level and kind of redo it to be a little bit more modern now that the MCU is kind of really grounded everything.
Yeah, Christopher Nolan's Batman was great. I love Christian Bale as Batman. I love him as Batman, but you would kind of hit that nail on the head. I love Christopher Pattinson's Batman better.
Robert Pattinson.
Sorry. Because of it being a little bit more darker and realistic-esque. So yeah, I guess I would want to rewatch that one again. Because I remember watching it for the first time, and just the build up to the movie of the Batman, the build up to it, and I was so excited. And I kept telling my wife over and over. She probably got sick of me saying it. I was like, "We're going to go see this movie." I was like, you may not love Batman as much as I do. I was like, you may not love Batman at all. And you might be scared. But we're going to see it. I was like, I have to go see it. I was like, I have to go see it on like, in the theaters. Like, I can't wait for it to come out on streaming or anything. Because they were talking about it was only going to be in theaters for so long because of COVID and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
But I was like, it was like one of those movies where I was like, I have to go see it on the big screen.
Yeah, same thing here. I was, I as soon as they announced Robert Pattinson as Batman, I was like, oh, it's going to be good. And people are going to shit on it because the Twilight guy is trying to do Batman. But I was like, he is a phenomenal actor, guys. Like, trust me. And then I saw the trailers and I was like, okay, this is going to be really gritty, really grounded. I didn't need to like trick Bryn into seeing it. She was going to see it with me anyway. But the thing that like really hooked her on like, okay, let's go, is I was like, they're doing the Riddler more as like a serial killer this time. And she's big into like the true crime. And so I was like, it's a serial killer. And she was like, let's go.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is like after we were done watching the movie and like the credits roll up and the lights came on, I looked at my wife and she's like, that was so good. And I was like, yeah, right?
Yeah, I was like, I remember when it got the 3-hour runtime, people were like 3 hours, and I was like, trust me, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, like, so I also I get so mad when people are like, I can't watch Batman or I can't get into DC because it's so dark, it's so gritty, and I don't like watching Batman because he's so like mopey and stuff like that. And look at Robert Pattinson, like why would they pick him? He's wearing makeup, and I'm like, but that's real. I'm like, that is real life.
Also, they all wear makeup, guys.
Yeah.
For those who, because I've heard some people say this too with like the black eyeliner that he like wears. They're like, oh man, like they've even got him wearing like goth makeup. I'm like, if you go back and watch every single Batman, they all have that dark eyeshadow. It's just that when they take off their helmet, it magically disappears. This one was like, no, he does that on purpose.
Plus, imagine if your main purpose as Batman is you're a stealthy character, you're a ninja. okay, you're wearing all black, but then if you're in the dark, then you see just like white parts around the eyes. So you're like, someone's over there.
Yeah.
No, the whole point of it is so that nothing shines off of the skin, so light can't reflect and no one can see you. So when people are bitching, saying, why is he wearing makeup? I'm like, because that's the whole point of the costume. Everyone does it. They just don't.
And it makes it harder to see his eyes too, which as his character is an observer. Like he watches, he learns, he adapts. So if he's got his cowl on and you can't really see, like you can see his like white face, but like if he's got his cowl, you can't see where he's looking, what he's doing, and it makes it easier to A, observe what's happening, and B, to do his combat without people watching where he's going to strike next.
Yeah. And I don't know if you knew this, but like for football players, right? You know how they put the black stuff on their face?
Yeah.
You know that's so that way it absorbs light. It doesn't reflect into their eyes. So I don't understand why people bitch. And also I don't like when people just automatically discount an actor for their being picked for a role. Because when they chose him as Batman, I was actually very excited. I was like, interesting take. I am not going to prejudge about this. I was like, I'm not going to prejudge and think, oh man, he did Twilight and those movies were like, I don't know about this. I just went in open mind. I'm like, I want to see his take of Bruce Wayne. I want to see his take of Batman. And I was not let down. I was like, this is good. I was like, this is really good. He's a younger Batman and he's smart and he's showing that intelligent aspect of Batman. Yeah, there's other movies that have come out that show a little bit of the intelligence aspect of him doing experiments and stuff, but this hones in on the detective-esque brain of him. And I would honestly rewatch that over and over again if I could go back in time and rewatch
I do. I watch it a lot.
Yeah, I have it too. And sometimes I'll just pop it on and just like rewatch it. And my wife will be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Watching the Batman again." She's like, "Okay." Yeah.
I can't wait for the next one.
Me too, man.
Greenlit. I think they greenlit 2. I might be wrong.
They did greenlit 2. Yeah,
number 2. They might have greenlit 2 more movies. And I really appreciate, by the way, that they had the Joker in the post-credit scene. He was supposed to be in the movie. They cut the scene. So like it was supposed to be an interaction between Batman and Joker, where Joker's in the asylum and he's like, "Hey, I need, I've run out of options. I need help, out thinking this Riddler guy." And they have a really good scene together. But I really appreciate that they didn't just go Batman and Joker, because it's so easy to go Batman and Joker. And I don't have any beef with Joker. I think Joker's an amazing character. But the problem is we've been having the same character. We've had so many iterations of Joker. We have the Joker, the movie Joker. We have like Heath. I keep wanting to say Heath Miller because of the He Who Fights with Monsters. Heath Ledger's Joker was a masterpiece. And then you've had 2 Jokers since then. Put Joker down for a minute. He's a wonderful character. Build to him. He's supposed to be the antithesis of Batman. They're supposed to be 2 sides of the same coin. Right. One good, the one evil, but both working in mystery, both working in deceptions and illusions, and how a symbol can mean more than the actual man. That's what Joker's supposed to represent. He's supposed to be the exact version of Batman if he was evil.
Yeah.
And that's where you get Joker from. That's also why I didn't like Joker movie, because he's supposed to be an enigma. You're not supposed to know, just like the criminal world is not supposed to know who Batman is. No one else is supposed to know who Joker is. So, that being said, I think that they did a wonderful job of sticking to Riddler. You got Penguin. You got a good bit. Same thing with the next one. They'll probably do Court of Owls, which is really exciting because it's not something we've ever had in movie franchise before.
Know. I'm excited they do that.
Catwoman was introduced, great. You can do a Poison Ivy. You can do a Harley Quinn if you want to, and just kind of tease the Joker.
Let's get a Mr. Freeze reboot.
Mr. Freeze. I mean, these are things that you can ground and haven't been grounded yet. Like, I would skip over any villain that we had seen in Nolan's Batman, sans Joker eventually, because everything else has been done so cartoony and campy in live action movies that you get a chance to rebuild these characters from scratch. Heath Ledger redid Joker in a way that had never been done before, and it changed how we look at Joker forever. Do that with Poison Ivy, with is it Dr. Freeze or Mr. Freeze?
Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze. Most of Batman's villains are doctors. They're all very well educated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's smart, so he needs villains that are just as brilliant. So.
Exactly. So take some of these characters that have only been done. I mean, you did it with Riddler. They took a character who, remember, Jim Carrey played the Riddler, and it was over the top, cheesy, campy. It was wonderful, especially for what it was at the time. But you've now taken this Riddler character and turned him into like a cult leading psychopath, so like serial killer. That's awesome. That is what a real Riddler would be like. Like he would leave these clues in blood, and like I think that there's such an opportunity to do that with their other characters that they just don't do. And I'm glad that they put Joker down and were like, let's tease him. And I hope that they don't introduce him until the third movie. He should be the big bad endgame, the BBEG of the Batman universe. He should be what you build to.
Which Bane. Joker usually always is. Joker is always his yin to his yang to everything. So, on a side note, I want to tell you something real quick, and then we can end it. So talking about how like they don't know his secret identity, right? There was a meme going around of like a cut scene of an animation film of DC with Batman.
They unmask him.
Yeah.
I think it was like the Harley Quinn show on HBO.
Yeah, and I love that scene so bad because they unmask him. He's like, Bruce Wayne, what the hell? He's like, hey, hold on. He's like, Rain Tech was gonna release an electric car by 2023.
Where's my electric car?
He's like, I put
Bruce?
a down payment. He's like, I put a down payment on. Where the hell's my goddamn electric car, Bruce? I fucking died, dude. I
also just love when he unmasks him. He's like, don't you think I would have done that had I wanted to be had I wanted to know who he was? I would have unmasked him myself.
Yeah, he's like, all the years. He's like, I didn't want to do this. And then the Scarecrow, he's like, and he punches him in the face. And then I just love when he and then it just goes to
car, Bruce.
Yeah, that line cracked me up, dude.
I also I don't know if it was the same one, but I think there was something similar where they were basically talking about, wait a minute, you're a billionaire, and instead of pumping money into a socioeconomic system that helps the poor so that people no longer have to resort to crime, so that blah, blah, blah. You just go out there and you punch them in the face after you pay them $7 an hour, right? Maybe if you increase the money that you paid people. It was just such a good adapting of the times of like if Jeff Bezos went out in a Batman suit and was hitting people, it would be like, well, maybe if you paid your people better, they wouldn't have to resort to crime, Jeff. You're not a hero. You're a selfish jerk.
Yeah. God, I love. Where's my goddamn electric car, Bruce?